It was just before dusk when I heard the sound. At first, I thought it was the wind pushing through the old barn walls, a low moan carried across the fields. But then it came again, softer this time, like a whimper. I froze on the porch, my hand still resting on the doorframe. It wasn't the wind. It was something alive. I stepped out slowly, the gravel crunching under my boots louder than I wanted. The air was cool, sharp with the smell of pine and damp soil. My eyes swept across the yard until they stopped at the far corner, near the shed where I kept old tools. That's when I saw it, curled against the wooden wall, its spotted coat muddied and trembling, a snow leopard. For a moment, my chest tightened so hard I thought I couldn't breathe. Every story I'd heard about predators flashed through my head. The danger, the instinct to protect myself, the thought of running back inside. But I didn't move, because the sound that had drawn me out, the quiet cry, was still there, and it didn't sound like a predator. It sounded like pain. I whispered to myself, barely hearing the words. "What are you doing here? How did you even make it this far?" My voice trembled, but the animal didn't stir. Its head lifted weakly, eyes half-lidded, and then it looked right at me. Not with the glare of a hunter, but with something that felt almost like a plea. My hands shook. Part of me screamed to get back inside, to shut the door, to call someone. But who would come? Who would believe me? Another part, quieter, steadier, told me to wait, to breathe, to see. So I stayed where I was, standing on the edge of my porch, staring at this wild, broken creature pressed against my shed. Minutes passed. The leopard's breathing was ragged, each rise of its chest shallow, uneven. It tried to shift, pushing weakly with one paw, but collapsed again with a soft grunt. I flinched at the sound, and then my heart twisted. This wasn't an animal ready to strike. This was an animal barely holding on. Slowly, I stepped down from the porch. My boots hit the dirt, and the leopard's ears flicked back. Its eyes narrowed, muscles tensing. I stopped. I raised both hands, as if I was talking to a person, not a wild cat. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you," I murmured. My voice was shaking, but I forced the words out, gentle, steady. One step, then another. Each time the gravel shifted, the leopard's gaze sharpened. I kept my movements small, deliberate, as though the whole world depended on how softly I placed my foot. Sweat slid down the back of my neck, even though the air was cool. The distance between us closed, but every inch felt like a mile. When I was only a few yards away, the leopard's chest rose sharply and a low rumble escaped its throat. I froze. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried enough warning to stop me dead. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. I stayed still, meeting its eyes without stepping closer. For what felt like an eternity, we stared at each other. My breath caught in my chest. The animal's sides heaved, its pupils wide, ears flat. I thought it might lunge, thought I had pushed too far. Then, slowly, the rumble faded. Its head dropped a little, chin resting back on its foreleg. The eyes never left mine, but the tension seemed to ease. I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My knees trembled. I crouched slightly, lowering myself so I didn't tower above it. My voice came out in a whisper, barely more than air. "You're hurt, aren't you?" The leopard blinked, slow and heavy, like it took all its strength. It didn't move otherwise. That single blink, though, it was enough to pull me forward another half step. I knew I couldn't touch it, not yet. But I also knew I couldn't walk away. The world around us seemed to disappear. The trees, the fading light, even the silence of the fields. It was just me and those eyes, staring into each other across the short space of the yard. My fear hadn't left, but something deeper had taken its place. A connection, fragile and impossible, but real. I stayed there until the night began to settle, the sky bruising into deeper shades of gray. The leopard never moved, never tried to leave. It only kept watching me, and I realized that I couldn't turn my back now. Whatever had brought it here, whatever pain had driven it to my doorstep, it was asking me for something. Maybe not in words, but in a way more powerful than words could ever be. As the last of the light slipped behind the mountains, I knew this was only the beginning. Because the moment I met its eyes, I understood this was no accident. It had come to me for a reason. The night was long, and I barely slept. Every sound outside made me sit up in bed, half expecting the leopard to be gone, half terrified it might come closer. By dawn, the pale light slipping through the curtains, I gave up on rest. I pulled on my boots and stepped outside. The air was crisp, dew clinging to the grass. My eyes went straight to the shed. It was still there. The leopard hadn't moved much. Its body curled the same way, chest lifting in shallow breaths. Relief hit me, but worry followed right behind. If it stayed like this, it wouldn't last long. I whispered under my breath as I walked toward the porch steps. "You can't survive on your own like this, can you?" My voice cracked in the morning stillness. The animal's ears twitched, head lifting slightly. Those eyes caught me again. I froze mid-step, then forced myself to move slower. Food. It needed food. I hurried back into the kitchen, opening cupboards, staring at jars and cans that wouldn't do a thing. Then I remembered the small freezer. I pulled out a package of meat, deer I had butchered months ago, wrapped in brown paper. My hands worked fast, tearing it open, cutting the pieces smaller. I filled an old metal bowl and carried it out. My stomach knotted with every step. When I reached the porch, the leopard shifted uneasily. Its gaze fixed on the bowl, then flicked back to me. I crouched low, holding the bowl in front of me with both hands, careful not to startle it. My voice came out soft, steady. "Here, this is all I can offer you. Take it if you want." The gravel crunched as I edged closer, stopping several yards away. I placed the bowl down slowly, sliding it forward until I dared go no further. My hand trembled as I pulled back. The moment I stepped away, the leopard let out a low sound, not quite a growl, more like a warning. I froze again, my pulse hammering. Then I took 2 deliberate steps back. "Hands up. It's yours. I'm not taking it." Minutes stretched thin. The leopard didn't move at first. Its eyes stayed locked on me, as if weighing the risk. Finally, with a slow, painful motion, it pushed itself forward. Its nose hovered above the meat, nostrils flaring. I held my breath, afraid even the sound of breathing might break the fragile moment. But then it hesitated, lowered its head, and sniffed again. I almost whispered encouragement without meaning to. "Go on, you need this." It took a bite, small, clumsy, like its jaw didn't want to cooperate. The sight sent a wave of relief through me, so strong my knees weakened. But the way it chewed, slow, labored, told me how weak it really was. It wasn't the ravenous tearing I had expected. It was survival reduced to the smallest effort. I sat down on the porch step, my eyes never leaving it. Part of me still feared it might lash out, that instinct might override its weakness. But another part felt something different, an odd kind of responsibility. I'd placed the food there. Now it depended on me, at least for this moment. The leopard paused, lifting its head mid-chew to look at me again. For a second, our eyes locked, and I felt a shiver pass down my spine. It was as if it wanted to be sure, was I a threat, or something else entirely? Then it lowered its head and kept eating, slowly but steadily. My thoughts ran wild. Should I call someone? Was this even safe? What if it recovered and turned on me? I muttered quietly to myself, almost embarrassed at the sound of my own doubts. You're out of your mind. Feeding a predator on your doorstep, this isn't what normal people do. But the truth was, it didn't feel like danger anymore. It felt like standing at a crossroads, one path leading to fear and distance, the other to something I couldn't name yet, but couldn't turn away from either. By the time the leopard finished, its head rested near the bowl, eyes half closed as though the effort had drained what little energy remained. It didn't move to leave. It didn't retreat. It stayed. I rose slowly, careful not to startle it, and carried the empty wrapping back inside. When I returned, I brought a second bowl, this one filled with water. Placing it the same way, I stepped back and waited. It took even longer this time, but eventually, the leopard shifted forward, tongue flicking out to lap at the water. Each sound of drinking was soft, but heavy, like every swallow meant more than just survival. The sun was higher now, spreading warmth across the yard. I lowered myself to the porch again, leaning against the rail. My shoulders eased for the first time since yesterday. I didn't dare approach closer, but I also didn't need to. The leopard was here, alive, eating, drinking. That was enough. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. Me on the porch, it by the shed, a strange kind of silence between us. When the bowl was nearly empty, the leopard shifted again, curling itself back into the same spot as before. Its body relaxed, head lowering to the ground, eyes flicking closed. It didn't vanish into the trees. It stayed. I found myself whispering again. Words meant more for me than for it. All right, maybe we can get through this. One day at a time. As the shadows shortened across the yard, I realized the fear hadn't disappeared, but it had changed shape. It wasn't the fear of being attacked anymore. It was the fear of failing, of not being able to help. And that, somehow, felt heavier than anything else. The morning sun spilled across the yard, painting the grass with pale gold. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes as I stepped outside, the wooden porch creaking beneath my weight. My chest tightened with a mix of dread and hope. Part of me feared the spot by the shed would be empty. But it wasn't. The leopard was still there. Its body lay stretched, ribs faintly rising and falling. The sight tugged at something inside me. It hadn't left, even with the chance to slip back into the forest during the night. I took that as a sign, maybe not of trust yet, but of need. "Morning," I said quietly, my voice unsure. The animal's ears twitched, head lifting slightly. Its eyes, heavy-lidded but sharp, fixed on me. It didn't growl, didn't move away. That alone was enough to make me step forward. I carried a bowl of water and set it down just within reach, the same way I had yesterday. My hands shook, but the leopard only watched. After a pause, it leaned forward, lapping at the surface with slow, steady strokes of its tongue. Relief softened my shoulders. At least it still had strength enough for that. When it finished, I crouched low, scanning its body in the morning light. That's when I noticed it, its front paw, tucked awkwardly beneath. The fur was matted dark, sticky with old blood and dirt. My stomach twisted. No wonder it had been so weak. I whispered under my breath, "That has to hurt like hell." The question was, could I do anything about it? Every instinct screamed at me not to get closer. It was still a wild predator, claws and teeth sharp enough to tear me apart. But then its eyes caught mine again. They weren't fierce, not anymore. They were tired, resigned, almost asking. I lowered myself slowly, inching forward on my knees. My voice was steady but low, talking as if the sound could anchor both of us. "I just want to see, all right? Just see." The leopard shifted, a low rumble spilling from its throat. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might burst. I kept my hand hovering in the air, showing I meant no harm. The rumble lingered, then faded into silence. I let out a shaky breath and moved my hand closer. The first brush of fur under my fingertips made every muscle in my body tense. The leopard's ears pinned back, lips twitching as if ready to snarl. I whispered again, barely more than a breath. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." Seconds crawled by. Then, slowly, the tension drained from its body. Its head lowered back to the ground, eyes half closing. My hand rested on its leg now, the fur coarse, clumped with dried blood. The heat of its body pulsed under my palm. I swallowed hard, unable to believe what I was doing. With careful movements, I brushed the fur back, trying to see the injury. The paw was swollen, cut deep along the pad. Dried mud clung stubbornly to the wound. My gut twisted at the sight, but I kept my touch light, gentle. The leopard flinched once, a sharp jerk of its limb, but then stilled again. It was letting me. I reached for the rag I had tucked in my pocket, dampened with warm water from inside. My hands trembled as I dabbed at the wound. Mud loosened, flakes of dried blood staining the cloth. Each time I touched it, I murmured softly, as if words could soften the sting. I know it's not easy. Hang on." The leopard's breathing quickened, chest rising fast, but it didn't pull away. Instead, it let out a sound halfway between a growl and a sigh, eyes squeezing shut. I wiped gently, careful not to press too hard, until the worst of the dirt was gone. The cut looked angry, raw, but cleaner now. I pulled back slowly, my rag darkened and wet. My heart pounded in my throat. I had touched a wild snow leopard, cleaned its wound, and lived to tell about it. More than that, it had allowed me. Sitting back on my heels, I studied the animal. Its eyes opened again, meeting mine. For a moment, we stayed locked there, the silence thick but not threatening. It wasn't fear I felt now. It was something else, heavier, deeper. A connection that went beyond logic. The leopard lowered its head onto its forelegs, a soft huff escaping its mouth. It looked tired, but less tense. My own body sagged with the release of fear I hadn't realized I was holding. I leaned back, my voice quiet. "You trust me now, don't you? At least a little." The words hung in the morning air, unanswered but undeniable. I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. This wasn't just about feeding a hungry animal anymore. This was about saving a life. And the weight of that pressed down harder than anything else. As I stood and stepped back toward the porch, One thought gnawed at me. Could I actually save it? Or was I only buying time, easing its suffering for a few days more? That question followed me inside, heavy as stone, and I knew I wouldn't find the answer easily. The days began to blur together. Each morning, I stepped out of the house with a knot in my stomach, unsure if the leopard would still be there. And each morning, it was. A little stronger than the day before, a little more awake. The wound on its paw was still raw, but cleaner now. It limped when it tried to stand, yet it was standing. That was something. I made a routine of it. Food in the bowl, water fresh each morning, and slow steps to place them down. At first, it only ate when I moved away. But after 2 days, it started nibbling even while I was still in sight. By the third, it no longer waited until I disappeared inside. That small shift felt like a mountain moved. Sometimes I caught it watching me. When I chopped wood near the shed, I'd glance up and find its pale eyes fixed on me. Not with the sharp focus of a hunter, but with something calmer, steadier, as though it was trying to figure me out the same way I was trying to figure it. One evening, I sat on the porch while the sun dropped behind the hills. My voice carried in the cool air, soft and uncertain. You know, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Feeding you, patching you up, talking like you'll answer back. The leopard lifted its head, ears flicking. I shook mine, half smiling. Crazy, isn't it? Maybe I've just lost it. The animal blinked, slow and deliberate. It wasn't an answer, but somehow it felt like one. By the fourth day, its movements had changed. It stretched more, shifted its weight carefully onto the injured paw. It followed me with its eyes when I carried wood, when I tended to the chickens, even when I walked across the yard. Once, I turned and found it standing a little closer than usual, no longer pressed tight against the shed, but halfway between me and the trees. My chest tightened at the sight, but I didn't move. I let it decide how close to come. That night, as I sat cross-legged near the porch, something unexpected happened. The leopard stood, limped forward slowly, and lowered itself onto the grass in front of me. My breath caught. Then, in a motion that sent a shiver through me, it laid its head across my knee. The weight was solid, warm, and terrifying all at once. I didn't dare move at first. My body froze, my mind raced. Every warning screamed inside me. Claws, teeth, wild. But then I looked down at it, eyes closed, breath steady, trusting me enough to rest like this. My hand hovered above its neck before settling gently onto its fur. The texture was rougher than I imagined, but alive, warm. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might shake us both. I whispered, barely trusting my voice. Why are you doing this? Don't you know what you are, what I am? We're not supposed to be this close. But it didn't move. It stayed there, heavy and calm against me. I stroked the back of its neck once, twice, each movement careful, reverent. The fear didn't vanish, but something else pushed through it. Awe. Later that same evening, as the chill crept in, the leopard stirred. I shifted, and without thinking, I slipped my arms under its body and lifted. The weight startled me, more solid than I expected, but it didn't resist. It lay heavy in my arms, head tucked against my chest, and I carried it the few steps to the porch. My muscles strained, but I held on. I sat down on the porch steps, the leopard still draped against me. The reality of what I was doing hit me like a blow. Holding a wild predator, one that could shred me in seconds if it wanted. My breath came shallow, nervous, but it didn't move. It just leaned into me, the warmth of its body seeping into mine. A voice in my head shouted, "What are you doing? You're crossing a line you can't uncross." Another voice, quieter but stronger, said, "Maybe this is what it needs. Maybe this is what I need." The conflict tore at me as I sat there, muscles burning, heart racing. I wasn't sure if I was saving it or making a mistake I couldn't undo. But when its breathing slowed, turning deeper, heavier, I knew I couldn't let go. It had chosen to trust me, and I couldn't betray that. Eventually, I shifted it gently onto the porch beside me. It curled against the door, eyes closed, chest rising in steady rhythm. I leaned back against the rail, staring at the stars just starting to appear. My whole body ached with exhaustion, my mind with questions. Was I helping this animal heal, or was I taming something that should never be tamed? The answer didn't come, but the sound of its steady breathing filled the silence. And in that moment, it was enough. When I finally rose to go inside, I glanced down one last time. The leopard was asleep by my door, as if guarding me, or maybe needing me to guard it. Either way, I knew things had changed. It wasn't just surviving now. It was staying. The morning came brighter than the rest. The air carried a warmth that hadn't been there the week before, and for the first time since this began, the leopard rose without hesitation. It stood taller, steadier on its injured paw, testing its weight as though the pain no longer owned it. My chest tightened watching it. Stronger, yes, but it also meant my time with it was running out. I set down a bowl of food, though it wasn't needed as much now. The leopard sniffed at it, took a few bites, then lifted its head to me. There was something different in its eyes, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. It no longer looked broken. It looked ready. I leaned against the porch rail, folding my arms tight across my chest. "You can't stay here forever," I said aloud, though my voice wavered. "You don't belong to me. You never did." It blinked slowly, then padded across the yard, moving further than it ever had in days past. Its muscles rippled under the spotted coat, lean but capable now. The limp was still there, but softer, not as sharp. Each step was proof it was healing. By midday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my coat and walked across the yard. The leopard turned its head, watching me, but didn't retreat. I nodded, half to myself. "It's time," I whispered. The woods weren't far. The path wound past the shed, through the back field, into the thick line of trees. I stepped onto it with slow, deliberate strides. Behind me, I heard the crunch of leaves and dirt. My pulse kicked. It was following. The walk felt longer than it should have. I kept glancing back, each time catching its pale eyes fixed on me, its body moving carefully but without hesitation. I thought about every moment we had shared, the cries that first pulled me outside, the trembling body against the shed, the trust when it let me touch its paw, the night it laid its head across my knees. Each memory weighed heavy and light all at once. When we reached the clearing, the forest spread before us, vast and endless. This was its world, not mine. My throat tightened as I turned to face it. "This is where you go," I said softly. "This is where you belong." The leopard stood a few feet away, chest rising steady, eyes locked on mine. I knelt down, my knees pressing into the damp earth. My hand hovered in the air one last time, offering nothing but a farewell. To my surprise, it stepped forward, closing the distance, and pressed its head lightly against my hand. The contact was brief, almost fleeting, but it rooted me in place. My eyes burned, though I tried to steady my breath. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice cracking, "for trusting me." It pulled back, blinking once before turning toward the trees. The sound of its paws against the undergrowth echoed softly, fading as it moved deeper into the forest. Halfway across the clearing, it stopped. It turned its head, looking back at me. Once, twice. The pause was long enough to etch itself into memory. Then it continued on, disappearing into the green. I stayed crouched, staring at the spot where it vanished, my chest heavy with both loss and relief. I had done what needed to be done. It wasn't mine to keep. It was mine to help, and that was enough. The walk back home felt strange, the yard empty in a way it hadn't been before. I stopped at the porch, resting my hand against the railing, eyes fixed on the place where it had slept for days. The silence pressed in, but it wasn't lonely. It was full of the weight of what had happened, full of the memory of something I would never forget. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, I stood with my arms folded and let out a long breath. Life would return to its routine, chores, long days, quiet nights. But I knew I wasn't the same. I had been given something rare, something I couldn't put into words. A moment of trust between two worlds that should never have crossed. I turned toward the house, my boots heavy on the wooden steps. Before I went inside, I glanced once more at the edge of the forest. Somewhere out there, it was walking free again. And though it was gone, it would never leave me. That night, as I lay in bed, I closed my eyes and saw its pale gaze one last time. The fear, the pain, the trust, all of it lived inside that look. And I knew, deep down, that this wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning.